System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' inner city left.
Amin TMK for Inner City Left alongside geopolitical experts Moja Lil Tanky Sumler. Moja, what's good, my friend? How are you doing today?
Man, the world keep on spinning, and that's a good thing, I guess.
That's a fact. That's a fact. I want to. I'm glad because you mentioned this that you wanted to kind of talk about this today, and it's good because we've actually kind of been covering this on Inner City Left on Instagram at Instagram Inner City Left. A little plug right there if you're on the gram.
Follow us everywhere you do. If you're doing that shit and you're wondering if we there, throwing in a City Left, throwing in a Little Tanky, throwing a Mean TMK, see what you get.
Yeah, and where you and exactly you can find so much of what we do because I was trying to think of like, okay, what do I want to call you? I'm like, oh, geopolitical expert, which you are. But also you have an MFA too. You're also a rapper and vocalist. You know, I mean, you're a writer. I mean, there's so many things that we have to do to survive in this world as leftists. You know what I'm saying? You have to have 12 jobs. Okay, back on the game here. So this was a few days ago. This is from a Twitter account called Bros of Stalin. You should follow them. Niger officially kicks out U.S. troops filmed leaving Airbase 101 after, well, you can't see it, but I can see it. U.S. troops leaving the Airbase 101 after the revolutionary Niger government demanded American troops leave the country after successfully kicking out the French troops. The French and U.S. military occupation there is deeply unpopular in Niger. You see now that they are not the only ones. Oh, we mentioned already that they wanted to nationalize their uranium because they were getting sold for like basically pennies on the dollars when they had to go through France. They were powering France and getting no money for it. So now we see we've taken a drastic measure. Not only have we nationalized that, we have kicked out the French, now kicking out the U.S. military. We have the alliance of the Sahel states. It's an important and incredible development here in one of the most impoverished areas in the world. And I just want to know your thoughts and your feelings on this. And, how should we feel about it?
Man, one of the things I've been seeing all over my timeline, of course, right in the West, everybody's like, oh no, what's the Russian group, the Russian mercenary group?
Wagner.
Yeah, Wagner. Wagner's all in the Sahel. They're paying Wagner $100 million a year for security. No, they're not. They're paying Wagner $100 million a year to protect the gold mines, which they've nationalized, which they're making way, way more than that. If you don't understand that protection is a cut, that's just grown up reality. You know what I'm saying? You have to pay someone to help you defend these things. And they're making so much more by just paying that $100 million to those groups than they were under their Western colonial leaders. I mean, again, to your point, they were getting 11 euros. 11 euros per canister of yellow cake. I mean, that's just, if you don't understand how exploitative
that's like one of the rarest minerals and most important. What is it used for? Tell people what those things can be used for.
Well, you use it to make nuclear energy or nuclear bombs. Either one. I mean, that's depleted uranium shells. Like every usage of it is something expensive, a very high end.
It's like buying a what you call it, like a McLaren. Like you may be able to afford it, but are you going to be able to maintain it?
Maintain it, exactly. And so those are those things, right? And they understand when you're talking about resources like that, in spite of all that language of the West, oh, we bring liberty and freedom, that's bullshit. I mean, is Jordan democracy? No. But Gaza was, you know what I'm saying? They voted for who got to stay and who got to, you know what I'm saying? And we're going to come back to that later. But you just have to point out the obviousness of this. They don't care, right, that there was a coup in the Sahel. They don't care. The United States the West has pulled coups in the Sahel for so long. It would bugger the mind. It'd be the rest of the show. If I just talked about all their coups in Africa, it'd be the rest of the show. So they don't mind that there are coups. They don't mind that democracy has failed. They do care that they don't have access to those resources anymore. And either the government is going to be tied up doing government things like governmenting, or the government is going to be tied up doing things like oh my God, we have to spend every penny we have to keep the West from recolonizing us, recooing us, something like that. So to them, that 100 million a year, that's fucking, who fucking cares? You know, that's buying you a sleep at night. You know what I'm saying? And that's what you have, right? The fact that, we're in this place where all of these nations, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, had to even put this thing together, right? Because they know they've survived this so many times. They're like, no, we want to do something for the people. Because this is the irony of the West, right? They take all of your resources and make it impossible for you to achieve the level of technological distinction that the West has, because you need the resources to do that. And they've taken your resources. Often they've taken your humans, right? The very social capital. And then they tease you for not being at their level of development. But it's not that their technology is inherently better. The West is more inherently ruthless and will resort to trickery and or guns to take your stuff. So like, these nations are waking up, man. They understand. Look, if we're gonna be big boys, we have to bring in big boy forces to help us keep this, so that our government can do government things, bring services to the people. But they could have came up
Yeah,
with a better
no,
plan
I
than
mean,
that. So,
you're so right. I mean, and we can look at places like Nigeria, places like Kenya, where the West is highly influential in what they do. And like you said, I mean, Congo right now. I mean,
right.
we talk about the G word, and it's happening multiple places. And Congo, it's again, the exploiting of local tensions to destabilize a country and take their resources, because the Congo is one of the most resource rich places on planet Earth.
And
And
it has been
Congolese people
forever,
should
right?
be some of the exactly. They should
It
be some of the
funded
richest people in
the
the world.
modernization and development of Belgium. I mean, King Leopold's ghost talked about, I mean, the whole term crime against humanity came from the way the Belgians treated the Congolese, the way that they extracted the resources at that time. Rubber was the most important resource. And, the whole, in many ways, the Industrial Revolution could not have taken the shape that it did without the rubber from Congo. You know what I'm saying? All of the cars, all of the Model T, all of that technological development, right, is not possible without the rubber to make the tires. To You know what I'm saying? And so, what happened, right? Is Congo one of the most prosperous nations on earth? Not at all, because the Belgians came in, they extracted at literal gunpoint all of those resources, broke up the nation based upon what they felt like the tribal frictions were, and to this day, a lot of those frictions continue based upon the systems that were set in place by the Belgians.
We did a little switcheroo right there. I'm not exactly sure what happened. I think you just went dark for like a half a second, but yeah, I agree, and I think when you look at, like you said, when you look at a country who's like, I don't want to be run by the Western world because I've got an economic hit job on me. I don't care about how much money I make and how rich my family gets. I don't care, because if you look in a lot of these African leaders, what you see is a history and a lineage. A family that has ruled for quite some time. People have been in power for 30 years, and their father was in power for 30 years. We also see this in a place like the Philippines, and again, the Jordan king speaks Arabic with a British accent.
The British accent, yeah.
So yeah, we have got to acknowledge that the West's tentacles they have to implant everywhere. And you're looking at these three military men, hard men. Okay, these are not American politicians. These are military men, right? I mean, these are leaders of military men. I mean, and this is, again, just to remind people that this is how governments are won, by force. And if you are unable to match the force of your government, Godfather too. I mean, people believe in something bigger than profits and
Right.
capitalism and lineage. They believe in they believe in tribe. They believe in people. They believe in humanity, and they're not going to exploit, their country for a few pennies for them.
And I just want to say this, right? The French were there and the Americans were there, ostensibly under the principle of anti-terrorism, counterterrorism, right? All of the ISIS attacks. And since the French and the Americans are gone, for some reason, there's way less ISIS. Look, I'm not here to, causality or any of those things. I just think it's funny.
I just think it's funny how,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think it's just important to remember that there's going to be, anytime something like this happens, there's going to be a lot of New York Times articles and Wall Street Journal articles and CBS News, and you're going to start seeing negative things about these people, just like you see in Myanmar, where the military junta took over a very pro-Western leader. And
if the Americans are against juntas, then why hasn't there been strong action in Egypt?
Exactly. It's funny how again. I think it's funny how Egypt went through 3 presidents in 4 years until they found the one that they liked, till they got the right one, right? And again, I mean, this is just, I hate to harp on this, but like, this is something that we constantly get when we discuss like geopolitics. It's like, first of all, I live in the United States, so I can critique this place because I know it very well. Right. And there are bad things that go on in other places. Sure, they do. But when I'm looking at a nation state, I'm looking at what nation states do, and I'm juxtaposing them. And if I juxtapose these nation states, the ones that are run by a military junta or whatever it may be, those people are more for the people. They're more for the everyday human. Instead of, when I look at democracies, I see places where the elite are always prioritized. And I think this is what is so frustrating about dealing with electoral politics, because there's a very little change there. We see that Jill Stein can't even get on all the ballots. Cornel West can't get on all the ballots.
To debate,
How is that possible? How is that a democracy? I hate to bring this up, but I mean, it is an elephant in the room. Someone shot at one of the presidents or candidates, and the other one just caught COVID. And several people, including the former Democratic majority leader, Schumer, okay, daddy to the most unfunny white woman in the world, Amy Schumer, okay, just said step down.
They're related though.
Uncle.
Yeah, I think it's
the uncle. Yeah. Anyway, Thank you for fact checking me. You're almost as good as the Instagram fact checkers, I'm telling you. But yeah, it's unfortunate. I also wanted to bring this up too because we get a lot of backlash anytime we talk nicely about China. Again, I just want to point out that when you juxtapose these nations, this one is much nicer than this one. Okay, I'm not saying it's perfect.
Right. This is for the hate watching liberals, right? That for some reason think they're going to educate us and bring us back to their nothing, right? This is my question to you that say to me, what right does China have to Taiwan? Right. We'll just ignore all the history and the Civil War and all of those things. The one China principle, we'll ignore all of that.
And Kuomintang and their background and all of that. Let's just ignore all that.
And what I will ask you is, what right does the United States have to Guam? Guam exists to be a forward base in the very likely eventual conflict of military power. Literally. It's the only thing the Americans give a fuck about Guam for at all, to keep a forward presence of American soldiers. So don't talk to me about freedom. Don't talk to me about an imperial China. China has not been an empire for more than 1,000 years. Has not waged a war of aggression in over 1,000 years, right? You can talk about little border conflicts they have with India, border conflicts they have with Vietnam.
Do they drop bombs on civilians? You know what I mean? They don't drop bombs on civilians. You know what I mean? And there was one thing earlier, and I just wanted to mention this because this is the reason I brought up China is, we always talk about how China is leaving these African nations in these debt traps and they're trying to exploit their resources. China only owns 8% of the total African debt accumulation. So put that in your pipe and smoke it.
And compare and contrast that with the major industrial building, right? China is going into Africa and building ports, right? Their trade is mutualistic because they understand they want better customers. And that can only happen when nations have advanced economies. Like China is there's something that the Americans cannot understand at all because we're so quarter one driven. They're thinking about future, long-term market viability. And that's
Yeah.
terrifying to Americans.
Yeah, exactly. And the United States has done nothing but go the complete opposite direction. As much money as you can get this quarter, spend it on stock buybacks, inflate your stock market. We were watching, was it Ben Norton? Is that who we watch sometimes?
Awesome.
Did a great expose on this, and I highly suggest you check him out. But basically, he was just saying like that this is just what China does. They're trying to, again, the Belt and Road Initiative. This is something that connects the world. And yes, China will benefit, but also it is a nation of 1.5 billion people, an ancient country. They've been doing this for a long time. And I think that their aspirations, while again, I don't know, I don't live there, seem to be much more positive and much more community driven, global community driven than the United States, who just does economic hit jobs on your country and makes a few people wealthy. And there's a resource curse. And that's why we have places like Papua New Guinea where people get kidnapped because they're not getting paid. Yeah. Anything on this before I pivot?
Let's take that pivot.
So as you know, you actually broke this to me. At least one person dead in Tel Aviv drone attack. This is. Sorry, you literally was talking to me about this morning, so I haven't read too much about it. So I'm gonna just ask you about it. What do we know about this drone attack? We see one person is gone. You were telling me the Houthis might be involved.
According to Atlas News, the Houthis have claimed responsibility. So a drone attack, right, where they floated this drone up the Red Sea, okay, through the Sinai, out across the Mediterranean, and then back across, right?
Real Tommy Cruise.
Talking about thousands of kilometers, and it blew up right outside the American embassy. The first reports were that the American embassy got hit. Now, I didn't know what to think of this at first, right? Because we all know that Bibi Netanyahu is on his way to speak in front of Congress, and it was like, oh man, this would be, and again, take it with a grain of salt. This would be a wonderful opportunity for him to be like, look at how dangerous it is in Israel. This is why we need American weapon, right? I mean, just the whole little shtick, like, oh, we need more. Look at how, you know what I'm saying? Also, let's go to war with Iran, which, by the way, that speech is coming, and Vance has made it quite abundantly clear that's what his priorities are. And with the overwhelming reality of probably about to have a Trump presidency, you can look for you again. We did this with Ukraine. Right now, stamp it. 7/19/2024, Inner City Left told you the next war of choice will be Iran, especially in the face of a Trump presidency, right? Mark it down right now. So don't come back and be like, oh my God, how did this happen? And don't think that Biden would do any better or any of his replacements, because clearly that's the win now. Somewhere in the deep state, the word has gotten out. Don't fight peer adversaries. Let's go beat up somebody little and build up our strength again before we go and take on China. And Iran ain't that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be crude with my assessment of what may happen with the Trump presidency. And again, I don't know if it's going to happen. There are so many things up in the air. I'll leave it at that. But it could be a situation where, someone mentioned this this morning. I forget who it was. Where I was like, just picking which war you want. You want to take a step away from Ukraine and move that to Iran? Do you want to take a step up in Taiwan? The thing about it is it will be turned up somewhere. It's not like Donnie J is going to get in there and going to be like, you know what? We need to back up off these wars. Let's not forget, he killed one of their most beloved generals while he was in office, and there's still obviously animosity with that.
Well, not animosity. There is. Look, man, people have to pull away from this imagination of feral Muslims that are just out there waiting to blow themselves up to kill you, right? Iran is a country, and that country it is a state, right? And the state wishes to exist. They have a warrant for his arrest because he killed an Iranian. I mean, that's what, look, if an Iranian killed an American, I mean, think about how many people get tried in absentia in American courts all the time.
I mean, Putin was indicted by, what was it, the
The
ICC
IC, yeah,
or the
right.
ICJ? I don't remember, one of those.
Yeah. No, I think it was the ICC, right? So, like, I mean, this is what happens, man. Like, other nations have legal processes. You know, they don't need to kill Trump. They've already put distance between that narrative. And it just seems like, I mean, it's the least likely. I mean, it's far more likely that a Ukrainian splinter group had something to do with that than some Iranian, Revolutionary Guard plot. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's highly unlikely, um, because you already have a new presidency in, so there wouldn't have been even time to plan an op like that. That's not something you do when you're
Right.
waiting for a new president. That's just not. That's because you're talking about big time now. It's just not something that a rational nation would do. And unlike what people want you to believe, the Iranian government is not irrational.
Yeah, I
You
don't know if you remember this, and this is something that we had to discuss on our Instagram. When there was this Instagram post going around that was like, Iran killed 15,000 of their citizens and a blah blah. I mean, it
know?
was really going around the internet.
Right.
We were like,
And it was enough.
why would a country kill 15,000 of its own people?
Mm.
Like only a barbaric, inhuman, entity would do something like that. So, again, just remind yourself, you live in a place that has something called propaganda, and that propaganda permutates everywhere. I don't have an MFA. I'm trying to get better with my $5 words, but
permutates works, permeates also works. The thing, though, just to bring it back, though, this is terrifying for Israel because Israel used to being the bully. They've built themselves up into this kind of Sparta reputation, right? When we talk about the 6 Day War and all it takes is just a few Israelis and they can defeat the hordes of Arab Muslims, that are waiting to knock their doors down, 6 nations in 6 days, right? All that mythology is being dissipated in real time because most Americans don't actualize the fact that Tel Aviv is the capital of Israel, right? They think it's Jerusalem, but it's not. It's Tel Aviv. So the fact that the Houthis were able to have a drone strike in the embassy area, I mean, imagine if something that violent were to happen so you're talking about like DuPont Square, right? At DuPont Circle in DC. Like this is an extremely prestigious part. Like it would be unheard of. It would be such a radical, terrible act that that I mean that's the floodgates. And that's they sent one. And that's a warning, right? That's the thing. That's the warning about what just happened with the Houthis. Because if you sent one, you could have sent 100. And what would it have been like then, right? Again, it's a demonstration. It's a proof of concept, is what we used to say back in my corporate days. This is a proof of concept attack to prove that they can do this thing, right? That nothing could stop this thing. And so that's where we're at now because I'm hearing rumors that Bibi Netanyahu has canceled his American speaking tour at Congress. And if that's happened, that's a big thing. That's a big thing because they're talking about Israel now directly engaging the Houthis.
Yeah,
we'll see how that goes.
And again,
I just can't imagine.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, and I was gonna wrap up here, but again, you jump in anytime. I just was saying, like, the reason that these attacks are happening, and the reason why it's so high stakes, and the Houthis, which again, I told you, I was like, I usually think of them as, seizing ships. I don't think of them as
pirates, modern era pirates.
Yeah, and they obviously are upping their capabilities and taking a shot at the throne, or at least at the throne room. Like you said,
rocket the throne for sure.
yeah, and a rocket. Wow. Even though I know it's a drone, boom, hey. We're gonna talk about it,
man. It's a great metaphor, man.
Exactly. Thank you so much. But it's happening because the conditions in Gaza right now are as bad as they've ever been. Famine is setting in. There's no clean water. People are dying of starvation. We've already seen That report that said 186,000 people are dead, up to 40,000 children, young people. And, it just again, just reminds like the malaise of time, can just get people to kind of take a step away from a G-side of this epic proportion of this, calamity. And we also have to then, acknowledge that Israel is not really capable of sustaining not only this war, but their state in general. Everything about it is collapsing, and the United States is, again, propping it up, just like they're propping up whatever's left of Ukraine. And it's just all failing. It's all going bad. But at the end of the day, the suffering continues. And even if they're losing this, they still want to unalive as many Palestinians as possible. And it's just a tragedy that we have to experience this, and that, we can't do enough to stop it. And it's just unfortunate. And you can react to that, and we can wrap up if you want.
No, man, I think you worded it well. I mean, we're in a place where the so-called rules-based order is forced to deal with the reality that there's a realignment of power and priorities as far as the world is concerned. What you're seeing now play out are the opening stages of the rules-based order versus a multipolarity-based order. And the shouting hasn't even begun yet. They're just clearing their throat on both sides.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, a lighter note, check these new shirts I got. Oh, shoot. Here we go. I know you love them, right? Right now. These are exclusive. These are only exclusive for our $50 and up Patreon members. How about I did mail out a few the other day for people who are looking for them. I did want to give a shout out. First, I want to give a shout out to our podcast listeners. We are on all the podcast formats. Go and get that. And we know the majority of our listeners are podcast listeners. So we love you. We care about you. Hope you're having a good time on your way to some sort of capitalist rendezvous, I'm sure. But let's give a shout out to our Patreon members. Jay Gould, Art, No Ground, Robbie, Paula, Lissa, Lauren, Suzette, Dennis. We appreciate y'all. Y'all are the real heroes. And hey, we're chugging right on along on this thing, man. Any thoughts before we get out of here?
Stay safe in this crazy world.
Stay safe in this crazy world. Me and Team K, emoji a little tanky somewhere. Peace.
System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' in the city left.